Hello, this is John, one half of Beef Stupid, and today I'm going to be going over my top 10 albums of the year from 2022. Now I know what you're thinking. John, this is not Dark Souls. Where's Brendan? That's what we want to see. Trust me, the Dark Souls will keep coming. Don't even worry about that. This is just a little one-off creative project I've been thinking about doing for a while, so yeah, these are just the top 10 albums that I listened to the most this year that really mean a lot to me, so let's just jump right into it. Don't you break my heart. There was so much good hip-hop music this year, and I had to limit myself to 10 albums, so a lot of my favorites got left off, but this one I absolutely had to include. I was really surprised to see Vince Staples drop again so soon after his standout 2021 self-titled album, and he really one-upped himself this year with Ramona Park Broke My Heart. Great production, great storytelling, the flows and lyricism, it feels like what you would expect from Vince and more. I also really love the short little spoken word interludes in between a lot of the tracks. They really make the record come to life, and it feels really nostalgic, like it's a real memory in your head. This one's super fun and infectious, yet very personal and sentimental. Definitely check this one out if you haven't. Over the past couple years, the overall sound of Drain Gang has slowly progressed from the classic young lean style emo/cloud rap to a more Gen Z hyperpop emphasis. And to me, Crest represents the culmination of that new sound. I think the main reason why a lot of OG Drainers hate the new sound is because Exeter and Good Luck were kinda dog shit, and it really goes to show how White Armor is low-key the best Drain Gang member. Blade's abstract bars and Echo's ethereal vocals are really fun as always, but White Armor's production has been carrying Drain Gang ever since. White Armor's so good. Go check out Music for Weddings, another album that barely missed this list. Very cool instrumental project from him. Also, go check out Crest. It's really cool even if you don't like hyperpop. It's not even really hyperpop, it's like a hyperpop LaCroix. Like, there's definitely something funky going on in there, but it's not in your face about it. I hadn't heard of Waysblood until last year when I listened to Titanic Rising for the first time. An album that absolutely blew me away and still remains one of my all-time favorites. And In the Darkness, Hearts Aglow is her first release since that 2019 album, and after several listens over the past couple weeks, it definitely lived up to the hype. It retains that same sound from Titanic Rising, the distinct, psychedelic, ethereal folk pop. I think that's a good way of describing it. It makes sense why this album is reportedly part 2 of a trilogy that started with Titanic Rising. It progresses on the themes of the first album too, moving from lost love to isolation and loneliness, both personally and society in general in the COVID era. The two tracks that stand out to me the most are God Turned Me Into a Flower and the title track, Hearts Aglow, although the latter kinda sounds like it was ripped straight from a Titanic Rising B-side or something. I love that album so much, though, that she can make 20 more albums that sound just like it and I would never get tired of it. It's so heavenly, it feels like music you would hear in a dream. Mr. Morale! Kendrick Lamar is perhaps the greatest artist of our time in any medium. Following his great rise to the top throughout the 2010s, we saw him step away from the limelight almost entirely following the immeasurable success of his 2017 album Damn, and the subsequent Black Panther soundtrack he produced and curated in early 2018. A hiatus of this magnitude seems unprecedented in modern hip-hop. You either remain at the top or you fall off. There isn't much in between. Voluntarily stepping away from the rap game for 4 years is something that few others besides Kendrick could feasibly pull off without jeopardizing their career. Given his track record, fans were expecting his next release to be something masterful, memorable, and culturally significant, no matter how long it took. With Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Kendrick finally delivered. I doubt he was working for 4 years straight on this thing, but it's clear that he spent just as much time honing and perfecting this project as he did with Good Kid Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, Damn, honestly any of his projects. Kendrick gets extremely personal on this record, discussing themes of generational trauma, abuse, and how his recent experiences with therapy have reshaped his worldview and brought him to these revelations. He also does great work with themes about society and politics in the COVID era, specific topics ranging from cancel culture to gender identity to performative activism. Several of his heaviest and most uncomfortable songs in his entire discography are on this record, and there are few, if any, true bangers like Humble or Alright or Mad City. It's not an album you can put on and multitask. You have to sit down with it and really listen, and listen multiple times. This record makes so much sense for Kendrick's evolution as an artist, and I think it'll age very well, to the point where we'll look back on his discography in 20 years or something, and people will regard Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers as a sleeper classic, and put it right up there with To Pimp a Butterfly. The reason it's not higher on my list this year is because I honestly didn't have that much fun with it. Obviously, Kendrick didn't make this heavy, melancholic, revealing album so I could have fun with it. But if I'm honest, I'd still rather listen to Damn. Again, great album, deserves all the praise it has received, but not nearly my favorite Kendrick Lamar album or favorite album of 2022.
I gotta drive my mama car to pull up to the club.
While Kendrick certainly comes to mind first when discussing great consistency in contemporary rappers, Denzel Curry undoubtedly deserves to be in that conversation. In early 2020, Curry teamed up with producer Kenny Beats and dropped Unlocked, which remains one of my personal favorite hip-hop projects of all time, despite being less than 20 minutes. I had dabbled with Denzel's stuff before that, but after Unlocked dropped, I really dove deep into his discography and really started listening to him a ton. And Melt My Eyes, See Your Future is the first album he's released since then. I was absolutely blown away by this record the first listen. You wouldn't think that a rapper who essentially blew up from a song associated with bottle flipping memes would be able to conjure up a music career with any staying power. But Denzel did it, and it wasn't by accident either. He really stepped up on this thing. His bars, flows, hooks, the production on this thing is fantastic, and everything just meshes together so well. This is a clear peak for him thus far in his discography, although I still might like Unlocked better just because of the nostalgia factor. He also dropped a deluxe version, which usually I'm not a fan of, but it included some jazzy, Tiny Desk style versions of most of the songs on the original album, and I would definitely recommend checking out those cold-blooded soul versions. There are a couple tracks towards the back half of the album that don't really do it for me, but overall this record is phenomenal. Another huge step in the right direction for Denzel.
So quit bitching, motherfucker.
We've reached the point in the list where I've seriously considered each of these next 5 albums to be my number one, so it kind of pains me to see this one so low on this list, but here it is. I listened to Cave World for the first time just a couple weeks ago, and since then I've had it on repeat to the point where I knew it had to be ranked very high on my top 10. This might be the most fun album on the whole list. Viagra Boys put on a songwriting clinic across this entire record. Lead vocalist Sebastian Murphy's performances are equal parts catchy and bone-chilling. He injects the absolute minimum amount of irony to his impassioned screams about how they're harvesting unvaccinated babies for adrenochrome on creepy crawlers. A song with lyrics that in any other context would probably land you on like 20 different government watch lists for reading on the internet. It's awesome that a band from Sweden absolutely nailed the anti-science, free thinker, do your own research stereotype associated with the American right. It's easy to dunk on conspiracy theorists for being out of touch with reality, but as the song Troglodyte points out, we are all equal beneficiaries and victims of our evolutionary biology. Deep down, every single person on Earth has a monkey brain. We look for patterns even when there isn't a pattern to look for, which is how you get millions of people tuning into Tucker Carlson every night, a master at neo-fascist propaganda who has absolved himself of liability in legal disputes by saying no reasonable viewer would take him seriously. Tucker always has his finger on the pulse of the latest conservative moral panic. Critical race theory, abortion rights, most recently just trans people existing. Imaginary problems presented as the downfall of society. Combined with an era of severe social isolation and that one time where we all stayed inside for a year, it's no wonder why some people went insane. The overall theme that I got out of Cave World was isolation and how immeasurably bad it is for the human mind. It's so fascinating to think about how our brains evolved to create language, to cooperate with each other, and to solve incredibly complex problems, and how this internet/COVID era has amplified negative side effects that can occur when we neglect certain social parts of our brains for long periods of time. While technically a mixtape and not an album, almost 20 minutes shorter than his actual album 10 that came out 4 months later, Peace Fly God is Westside Gunn's best project since Pray for Paris. My first taste of Gunn was that standout 2020 release, and I instantly gravitated towards his fine art gangster aesthetic. Most of my favorite artists I love for their ability to shift their sound so as not to remain stagnant, but Westside Gunn is unique in that I love how generally one-dimensional he is. He's like the Mariano Rivera of rap. You know exactly what pitch he's gonna throw, but still no one can touch him. It's a combination of a lot of things. The grimiest coke bars you've ever heard, the precise yet seemingly lazy flow, the constant Gilbert Gottfried-esque nasally rasp in his voice, the pleasantly hyperbolic ad-libs that would make a Playboi Carti track sound bare bones, paired with instrumentals that came straight off the walls in an art museum. His style is so unique, so genius, and Peace Fly God is the closest he's ever come to perfecting it across an entire project. I say closest because I don't think it's perfect. Dan Housen, the second to last track, sticks out like a sore thumb. It's the one song on the tape produced by longtime Griselda collaborator Conductor Williams, and its up-tempo beat and weird, fluctuating synth swoops, I think is how you would describe it. It certainly feels out of place among the otherwise smoother and soulful instrumentals throughout the track list. It's like if you walked out of the Louvre into a swarm of angry bees. I'm knocking this one track because the rest of the tape is absolutely immaculate. The chemistry between Westside Gunn and Stove God Cooks is unrivaled, complemented by Don Carrera and Madlib beats and some standout verses from SD Knack. What's not to love? For a lot of my favorite records, it might take the second or third listen for it to really click with me, but I knew I was going to have Peace Fly God on repeat all summer before I was even halfway done with the first listen. The 21st studio album from Australian psychedelic rock outfit King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Ice, Death, Planets, Lungs, Mushrooms, and Lava, rocks. It rocks so hard. Since my diehard fandom for this group began in 2020, this is the release I've been looking for. I liked KG, LW, and Butterfly 3000, sure, but nothing compared to how much I love this record, which has firmly cemented itself within my top 5 Giz albums. My opinion on the group's consistency was soured a bit earlier in the year with the release of their 20th album, Omnium Gatherum. I was looking forward to an absolute masterpiece after they dropped 2 of their best singles ever to tease this milestone record, but instead of a magnum opus, we basically got Gumboot Soup 2. A couple good songs here and there, but the overall track list is extremely forgettable and lacking cohesion. The creative approach seems to have been the exact opposite on Ice, Death, Planets, Lungs, Mushrooms, and Lava, the 21st studio album from Australian psychedelic rock outfit King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Instead of throwing ideas at the wall to see what sticks, they poured all their attention into a handful of vignettes to create 7 masterful, ambitious, memorable tracks. The shortest song is 6.5 minutes, longer than all but 2 of the tracks on Omnium Gatherum. For a band that's dropped 23 albums over the past 10 years, you would think they value quantity over quality, but this record shows their dedication to proving just the opposite. I love this band so much, and I'm super excited to see what crazy ideas they come up with in the future.
3 + 3 + 3 is 9.
You really thought we were done with Blade? I showed you my Spotify Wrapped earlier, and you really thought we were done with Benjamin Reichwald, the Auto-Tune Dark Angel, Drain Gang CEO, I'm Blade, she call me Bladey? Looks like you're the fool now. Spider is in my top 3 Blade projects, along with Eversince and Red Light. I don't even really know how to describe it because it's kinda all over the place. Definitely his most eclectic project to date. He's building off some of the sounds from The Fool and Crest, but it's a lot more intense and high energy. There's some pop punk elements on here, which is way out of left field, especially for White Armor production. If Crest is like a LaCroix, Spider is McDonald's Sprite. I listened to this almost every day for like a month after it dropped late September, and I can tell this one's gonna stay in my rotation for a while. That's literally all I gotta say about this one. Before we hit the number one spot, I want to give some honorable mentions to albums that just missed the list this year. In no particular order: Capra Songs by FKA Twigs, Time Skiffs by Animal Collective, Dragon New Warm Mountain I Believe in You by Big Thief, Chloe and the Next 20th Century by Father John Misty, It's Almost Dry by Pusha T, Cocodrillo Turbo by Action Bronson, Gemini Rights by Steve Lacy, 2000 by Joey Badass, Music for Weddings by White Armor, God Save the Animals by Alex G, Louie by Kenny Beats, 111111 by MGMT, Hypochondriac by Breakins, and last but not least, Sick by Earl Sweatshirt.
Your chicken broccoli.
Released in early February, this was my frontrunner for Album of the Year from the jump. It came oh so close to being dethroned at the last second, but after going back and revisiting this one the past few weeks, it just wouldn't be right if Ants From Up There wasn't number one. Top to bottom, this thing is unbelievably pristine. It's a stark departure from the post-punk sound on their 2021 album for the first time. Definitely more refined and more accessible. Incredible instrumentation, vocal performances, songwriting, pretty much everything. It'll give you goosebumps and make you cry, but also you can play it in front of your friends sitting out on the porch during a hot summer rain or on a long road trip. It was fun seeing every music account I follow on Twitter and Instagram go crazy for this album all year, and all my friends who aren't as terminally online as I am had never heard of it. Lead vocalist Isaac Wood announced that he would be stepping away from the band just 4 days before this album's release, which is a bummer in the sense that we won't hear any new songs with his unique timbre and delivery, and live performances of songs from this album won't be the same, if they even do them at all. On the other hand, it's great that the rest of the band is still together, and this pretty much guarantees their next project will be just as ambitious as the last. If you made it this far into the video, you are legally required to check out Ants From Up There if you haven't already. Do it right now. Do it. I'll wait. I'll literally wait right here while you add it to your Spotify library. Or Apple Music, I don't judge. So yeah, that's the list. If I missed your favorite album, let me know in the comments. There's a bunch of albums that would have made my year-end list last year had I not found them until this year. Those would be Volcanic Bird Enemy and the Voiced Concern by Lil Ugly Mane, Rainbow Bridge 3 by Cemetery, By the Time I Get to Phoenix by Injury Reserve, Fishmonger by Underscores, TV62 by Bruiser Brigade, and Glow On by Turnstile. So if I left off your favorite album, there's a very good chance that I haven't even listened to it yet. So let me know. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.